For those of you who are joining us, welcome to the Oracle In podcast. My name is Eric. I'm joined by Laquan and Kevin, and we have a special guest, Ron, and we're going to move into the main segment of today's episode, which is just talking about, how do we want to frame this? How do you guys want to lay this out?
I guess we could just say pretty much, right now in America, there's this divide between, citizens and the police force, right? And so everybody's experience, technically based off your color, your gender, it will be significantly different. That's just the truth of the matter. And so in this particular case, Ron definitely had a very unfortunate event, and so his event is pretty unique. I was there, not when it happened, but everything happened after that, the discussions and stuff like that. I was definitely privy to a lot of the information and stuff like that. So we just thought it'd be a great opportunity to share, a very in-depth, experience, and maybe just kind of talk about it and find out like what the fuck is going on out here, So, yeah. All right, Ron, go ahead, man.
So in that sense, I know I'm looking at the clock, and I am particularly long-winded, so I'm going to try to shorten this up as much as I can. So November 17th, 2015, I was at my university, Alliant International University, and at the time I was working in one of the offices, scoring a assessment that I had given to a student the previous week. I am, at the time I was studying educational psychology. So in a part of that, I have to give out IQ tests, social emotional tests, academic tests, in order to assess students' cognitive, academic, and social and emotional functioning. So
you're a social psychologist. Would that be the correct way to say that?
Educational psychologist or school psychologist. Yes. So I was scoring a protocol that day for a test that I gave, and I know I'm talking a very technical language, so I'm going to try to get out of that as quick as I can. And I left the manual for the test kit in the car. So I went to the lobby. I saw a police car, Irvine Police Department, police car in the in front of the building. Thought to myself, what are the police doing here? And this is an internal conversation, and I'm saying, well, that they're not here for you, so you shouldn't care. And after, I concluded that thought, okay, cool. I walk out of the front door. As soon as I open the door, I hear, hey, and I didn't think twice of it. I'm going to my car. I want to say a moment later, I hear it again. Hey, I happen to look up, look to my right, or look to my left. And there is a police officer who's drawing his firearm on me. So at this point, I freeze. This police officer has me at gunpoint. He's probably 25 feet away from me. I think to myself, as he's talking to me, I'm thinking to myself, what did you do today? And I'm trying to replay my day, and I say to myself, you went to work. You got off work, and you guys aren't seeing my hand gestures because my hands are down. But I'm saying to myself, you went to work, you got off work, you came to your university, and you're here early. So you didn't do anything out of the ordinary. You didn't do anything that will cause you to get into trouble, or you didn't do anything that would warrant this police officer pointing his firearm at you.
Yeah.
So at that time, I looked, I put my focus back on this police officer who's, giving me demands or saying things to me, and he asked me what's my name. I said my name's Ronald. He asked me for my last name. I tell him my last name. He says, you match the description of someone that we're looking for. The person that we're looking for has a heavy accent. I said, well, you're obviously not looking for me because I don't have an accent. The officer tells me to sit tight. I say, okay. Couple moments later, I'm telling myself, what can you tell this officer to de-escalate the situation? Because he has a gun pointed at you, and you know you didn't do anything wrong, and the way that he's looking at you, he's ready to kill you. So I say, okay, I could tell the officer that I'm a student here at the university. So I tell him, hey, I'm a student here at this school. He says again, go ahead and sit tight. And I said, well, that didn't work. What else can I tell him? I said, hey, I'm an employee here as well. I also work at the school. He says, yeah, okay, sit tight. So I think to myself, well, damn, that didn't work. Today must be the day that I'm going to die. I'm literally telling myself that and preparing
Wow.
myself for that outcome.
So did you have your hands out? I mean, so this guy dropped
No,
a gun.
not at this time. At this time, my arms were out at my side. I had a water bottle in one hand and my cell phone in the other. Um, so, being in the military, we learn escalation of force. So
Can you
I knew
explain
that
that maybe for people that aren't familiar with that? What does that mean? Escalation of.
so escalation of force, and I'm going to again try to do this without using technical terms. So if you are presented with a threat, you can use a force, the necessary force to subdue that threat. Somebody's running, you can run after them and tackle them. Somebody's pointing a knife at you, you can pull out a knife or a baton or whatever that matches that threat in order to decapacitate that threat. If someone's pointing a gun at you, you point a gun at them. Um, so that's the escalatory cycle and the escalation of force. So what I was trying to do in that moment or in those moments was de-escalate. I told myself, if you de-escalate, I know he knows de-escalation of force as a police officer. He will de-escalate. So my hands were out at my side, and I wasn't moving. Like I said, I froze in place. However, that did not de-escalate the situation. It kept him. The officer stayed, where he was in that cycle. I would say the next step would have been to shoot me. Um,
But why? Just because you have a cell phone in your hand?
well, if I would have escalated, so if I would have escalated and if I was a threat, which I wasn't, being the fact that he already has his firearm out, that's the next step.
Are you bigger than he is?
Well, I think we were probably about the same size. On that day I was 6'2", 180 pounds. So, um,
Yeah, but when it's at nighttime, you're walking around as a white man. Every black guy you see is at least 3 feet taller and 200 pounds heavier, right?
well, and that
Especially if
goes
you're a
back to
cop,
that.
everyone's it's the threat. Look how big
All
he
right,
is.
all right. And it goes back to that national narrative about, black people being monsters is seen as King Kong or seen as these giants, these that could just overpower anyone. However, and that narrative didn't match who I was in that moment. I was a college student, Marine Corps veteran, served 2 combat tours to Iraq. Um, Substitute teacher at a nearby school, instructional assistant at that same nearby school. Again, graduate student, getting my master's degrees. So I didn't fit that narrative, that false narrative, and that's what I would like to call it, a false narrative, because it is a false narrative. But in that moment, I was that other narrative, this big black monster that just based off the color of his skin and just based off of him being this big black monster, he is a threat. And again, I wasn't a threat.
Did the
So
cop
I'm
have his partner with him?
so, and that's a little further on
Hmm.
in the event. So I had my hands out, at my sides, and then I said, okay, you need to again de-escalate the situation. Um, because I had the water bottle and my cell phone in my hand. I didn't want those items to be mistaken for something that they weren't. So I told the officer, hey, I'm going to throw these things off to the side. And he yells at me, what? I said, I'm going to throw these things off to the side. So I, put my hands up. So I put my hands up, shoulder height like this. And then I tell myself, that's not high enough. So I stick them all the way up in the air, above my head. Couple of moments later, a second officer walked out of the building, out of the same door that I walked out through. And I'm a pretty observant person. When there's things, stimuli that take place in the environment, things that are going on, I pay attention to everything just based off of, the training that I had in the military, and I'm just an observant person. But this day, this person walked up behind me, and I was not aware of it because I was so focused on, my attention was so trained on the officer's firearm that was standing in front of me.
Trying not to get shot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So officer number two is standing behind me, and officer number one and officer number two started talking to one another. So I'm going to refer to officer that was in front of me as officer number one. Officer number one tells officer number two, I don't think this is him. Officer number two asks me my name. I tell him the same thing. My name is Ronald. And he says, do you have ID on you? I says, yeah, I have ID. I don't know where it is, but I have ID. He says, what do you mean you don't have ID? Or you don't know, what do you mean you don't know where your ID is? I say, your partner's pointing a gun at me. I have no clue where my ID is. I know that I have it. He says, okay, well, why don't you grab it? And I said, again, your partner is pointing a gun at me. I'm not moving. And he says, okay, but I need you to get your ID. I said, but let me back up a second. So officer number two tells officer number one, hey, go ahead and holster your firearm. Officer number one lowers his firearm to the ready. So the ready is basically your firearm, the barrel of your firearm is pointing at the deck or at the ground. But he didn't holster his weapon. So officer number two at this point tells me again, hey, go ahead and grab your ID. And I tell officer number two, I says, sir, I don't know what you have to do to get my ID off of me, but you go ahead and do it because I'm not moving. Officer number two fumbles through my pockets, eventually finds my wallet, finds my ID, determines that I'm not the person that they're looking for, and then tells officer number one to put his weapon away, which he did at this point. Officer number two says, hey, you can go ahead and put your hands down. I do so very slowly. He hands me my wallet, and then officer number two and officer number one starts laughing about the event. Officer number two slaps me on my shoulder and says, hey, I bet that rattled you, huh? So I'm standing there thinking to myself, these bastards just tried to kill me. They literally, this cop was going to take my life, and they're laughing about it. Who laughs about something like that? So I'm standing there thinking about that.
Like that, yeah. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Talk about harassing.
Right. So they're laughing about the event. I'm thinking about this. And then the officer number two asked me, he says, do you need medical attention? And that's when I kind of snapped out of the place that I was and thinking about, the event, the experience that I had just had. So I said, no, I'm okay. Can I go? They say, yes. I try to walk to my car. And as I'm walking walking towards the parking lot, I'm processing what had happened. And I didn't even make it to the parking lot. I stopped at the curb. I turned around and walked back into the building. So yeah, that was the event that took place on November 17th, 2015.
Did you ever look into it any more to see who the suspect is that they were looking for? Did you ever get that information to see how much you actually fit it versus, just random black guy?
Well, they did eventually give me the description of the person that they were looking for. And I don't remember if he was a black male, but the individual that they were looking for had, from what they said, threatened someone who was in the building. He threatened his wife or his girlfriend or something like that. And this person that he threatened used to work in the building. However, she did not work there anymore. But he said he was on his way. So they thought I was that person.
So
yeah,
there were. So walking while black, basically.
Basically, I matched the description of, of Waldo. This Waldo character. I matched the description of him, and So
that's something that concerns me is when people talk about living in a police state, it's because of that method of force. You know, it's that if you're white, chances are you're not going to be put in a tense situation like that. But if you're not white, it's more likely that you're going to have your day stressed out with somebody threatening your life.
Right.
And that's supposed to be a normal thing.
I think the term is a little different though for African Americans, and I can't speak for all because we all many of us differ on this issue. But I think the term police state, you know, is a term that that is more so readily used by the white population of this country to describe the militarization of police and the mass surveillance, all these things that they have had to experience. It doesn't speak to the experience that, you know, African Americans have had since the inception of this country. I would phrase it as living in a constant state of terror and a constant state of fear, because you never know if you're going to lose your life just by being who you are. And I'm not going to say that this was the case in this particular incident. I'm going to give the police the benefit of the doubt. Plus, I don't want to paint, you know, I don't want to paint a narrative based off my experience. However, it's a constant, you know, state of fear and stress and trauma and living with the knowledge that just based off of who you are and a narrative that has been painted of you, that you could lose your life.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm gonna progress the story just a little bit to get to a point where Ron in his school, Ron conducted a town hall where they had the police chief, I believe it was, right? Was it police chief?
Right.
Yeah. So
we had the commander of operations. I want to say he was.
Yeah. So they had so Ron had a panel. You know, he had a bunch of academics there, and he had that chief there. And so what it was, you know, students and people in the community could come in, and Ron shared a story. And then pretty much that chief of police of that particular section was there to answer questions. And so I bring that up because I was there. And this kind of feeds into a narrative, you know, that a lot of us see, you know, when somebody is shot, you know, the police chief comes out, right? You'll never hear from the cop themselves. You know, you'll never hear that account, right? Because these people are professionally trained in PR to go out there and take these questions and deflect and stuff like that as well. Now, to kind of just condense everything. So it was funny because, like, you know, people was asking questions, and I was, you know, to me, I'm not necessarily fond of police. I'm just not. And so for me, I didn't really want to raise my hand because my anger, just seeing him there, you know, that police, I didn't want to say anything out of pocket, because it wasn't going to be nice, you know, anything I was saying, because I was listening. And let me get to this last part here. So what was happening was, when the cop was explaining, the chief, he was explaining what the person he was looking for. It was the person's wife. The guy they was originally looking for, it was his wife. They said that he was violent towards her in the past, and that, you know, he's known to be violent, right? And so it was funny because he's not even slick or smart. And if you just have any sense, that you understand the way he was trying to compare and contrast Ron and the cop, right? Because he was like, oh, you know, none of my cops are known to be racist, blah, 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 blah. You know, the cop in the question, you know, I think he did Boy Scouts or something like that. He was a Boy Scout leader or something like that.
Stuff. Their backgrounds, yeah.
And so before he talked about the cop, he was talking about how vicious, you know, the person they were looking for, you know, he was this, you know, black guy, you know, he's known for violence and stuff like that. And then the moment he talked about the cop, it was all glowing, trying to make sure that everybody knew that there was no way in the world that this cop could have done that kind of stuff. And so I was sitting there in the crowd, and I was going to raise my hand, but I was like, you know what? I'm probably going to go to jail tonight if I open my mouth, you know, because I was probably going to just start cursing and just really berating that cop, because it's like what I was going to say to him. I was like, I just like how you just painted Ron as this negative figure right here in front of everybody. But then when you talked about the cop, you eliminated any doubt that he had a chance to be racist. You even said it already. You've already prefaced to the whole crowd that you don't know anybody in your, you know, in your precinct to be racist. But how do you know that? You don't know that. They're going to act one way in front of you, their superior, and they're going to act another way with their peers. You know, right. Do you think that if I'm a white guy, I'm going to be dropping the N-bomb in front of my superior? No, I want to keep my job. I don't want to get written up. Right. But you're not out there with me 24/7, and there's that blue wall of silence. Right. So I say that to say this, and it's to close it, is that we see that all the time, right? We see it a lot of times in the minority community. We see it even in the white community as well, you know, at times that there is no accountability, right? And so it is like, well, not all cops are bad. Well, no, you know what? I don't want to hear that bullshit, because if there were good cops, then why aren't they arresting the bad cops, right? Because if you're making me look bad as a good cop, then why the hell are you checking them? Because in the military, if you fuck up, there is no military wall of signs. Your ass is getting fried. It's that simple. There is no special people out there. Your ass is in trouble because you made the military look bad. You made the government look bad. So you will be made an example. But there is not that same accountability in the police force. And we're talking about a domestic force within the continental United States. We're talking about the military, who is global, continental, and outside in different theaters, right? Who are out there, who have to exercise escalation of force. Even if you're out in town, right? So if you're in Iraq, I don't be a long-winded, but let me finish this up. So if you're out in Iraq, right, you're in a Humvee, right? Anybody in that town could be a terrorist, right? They all dress the same. You don't know who's who. It could be the women, it could be a kid, it could be the young boy, it could be an elderly man, or a middle-aged guy. No matter what, you cannot fire because I want to make sure I go home. That's the police, you know, rhetoric. I want to make sure I go home. Because if that was the same logic used in the military, there'd be a whole bunch of, you know, casualties out there.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
You hear it a lot in the police force. It's like, we want to make sure we go home at night, you know. So
meaning whatever force necessary so they can make home is all that matters.
They get to their family. And so pretty much you dehumanize whoever's in front of you, because it's more important that you go home than you do your damn job. So what I'm saying is, you take that same logic and you put in the military, there'll be a whole bunch of casualties overseas, because you're always scared out there. And if that's the case, everybody looks like a threat to you. But it's a thing called discipline. And the point is, you sign up knowing that you can die. That is the ultimate sacrifice you can give to your country, that is told to you, is to give your life. But with these police people, I want to go home and tell my people I'm a hero because I just killed somebody who scratched their ass, you know, right in front of me, and I thought it was a threat. You know, so, but yeah,
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Kevin, were you going to add something?
I'm sorry?
No, Kevin looked like he was going to add something.
So a question popped in my head, and I don't know that we know the answer, but when did this? So, we hear a lot more about this escalation of violence, especially against minority communities recently. Last couple of years, a lot of that is just social media, right? It's a lot easier to hear about it, even though it's been happening this whole time. We just hear about it more because there's more cameras out. But what is the origin of this, and how did we get so far down the line that
1613
that it's just where before asking what your name was, they had a gun on you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, where do we get to that point where
Well, I think for me and you, that's probably just becoming more apparent. I mean, they've been doing that to black and brown people for a long time.
1613.
Yeah. I think we're just becoming more aware of it. Yeah. Technology is allowing us to see it and it's real.
I think that's, another great point to, bring up when the officer, so in the midst of the experience that I had, I did a lot of different things. I organized a town hall meeting. I sat down with the deputy chief of police,
that's good, man. I'm glad
the area commander, the chief of police, many community leaders, attorneys, Congress. I mean, I've talked to people the world over, up and down the California coast, academics, lay people, so on and so forth. So one of the events that I did was the event that Laquan spoke about. And one of the things that the officer who was there did, he tried to talk about the history of policing. And he talked about the individual who started the modern policing, Sir Francis Bacon, I believe his name was.
Wait, Sir Francis Bacon, isn't he like a philosopher? And
okay, then I have the wrong person. But the individual who was the founder of basically policing came out of England, and policing was this this good thing and this, you know, this thing that was good for society.
Right.
So while he's telling the crowd this, the thought that is going through my head is, you know, policing for us in this country, for African, and when I say us, I mean African Americans. Policing in this country for us started in 1613, and our first encounter with police were the paddy rollers, and paddy rollers were the individuals who went out to catch Africans who had been brought to this country and who were enslaved in this country. And when an enslaved individual tried to leave the plantation that they were forced to work upon, they would be chased by a paddy roller, and that paddy roller would use whatever force was necessary in either to take that person back to the plantation or to kill that individual just because. So when he talked about, you know, the history of policing in the Western world, you know, our perspectives on that is very different, because his version of policing versus my version of policing when it comes to the history of the people in this country is very different. And it goes back to what I said earlier about living in a constant state of terror or a constant state of fear, because these individuals, while they claim to be servants of society and they claim to be individuals who uphold some standard of law in service, for us is very different. We don't see that. Police officers come into our communities to have fun. There's many interviews where you can see police officers that say that I specifically chose to work in this community so I can have fun. What does have fun mean? Beating the hell out of the black and brown kids as they walk home from school.
Yeah, to them it's like paintballing. That's all they're doing.
Right. So,
You know, there's a part of this that, you know, when you were talking about it, we hear not enough, but we hear a lot about PTSD in vets, especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it seems like, especially as we have all these, you know, people coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan, and other, you know, theaters of war coming back, and you have a cop pulling guns on people real easy like that. There's a quick way to get someone kind of, you know, put back into that, you know, kill or be killed mode, just due to their own experiences.
So, and that was, you know, definitely the experience that I had. You know, that experience left me extremely traumatized. And that event, and I'm going to give you the date again, November 17th, 2015. On that day, because I was going to the gym every single day and I weighed myself every single day. That day I was 185 pounds, 0.4, and it was the most that I've ever weighed in my life. It was, you know, a personal accomplishment, you know, and that was the result of working out and building muscle mass, so on and so forth. Within that first week, Within the first week, I lost 10 pounds. Within the first 2 weeks, I was down to 163 pounds. And it's a year and a half later, today, March 18th, I weigh roughly 168 pounds. So physically, I have not recovered from that experience. It was very traumatizing in the sense that, you know, I wanted to quit school, something that I never considered, never thought about to that point, and especially being the fact that, you know, I was told that I would never go to college. At the time, I had a 3.9 GPA. Would get to school earlier than everyone else, would stay at school, you know, sometimes later than everyone else. And I had called one of my mentors and I told him, I said, you know, I'm seriously considering dropping out. I can't handle this. I had to take time off of work. There was a lot that went into that event in the aftermath of being, you know, traumatized and having to deal with it.
Can you sue them?
I could, yeah.
Sounds like you have some pretty compelling evidence to show that.
Well, and I probably still can. And, you know, that's I thought about that route and I thought about it long and hard, but I didn't want to go that route.
I think that's the only way you can balance them out, because you got to hit them in the pockets. And that's when the politicians will be like, all right, you guys need to chill out with whatever you're doing, because we can't keep affording to pay out every time you guys harass somebody.
Definitely true, and I definitely agree with you. But I figured that going that route would make us adversaries and keep us adversaries, and I didn't want to continue to be an adversary to the police, and I didn't want them to continue to be my adversary. One of the first things that I told them when I sat down with them is, my attitude up to this point is fuck the police. And that's how I was raised. That's how everyone in my community sees you. However, I understand that if I continue with that attitude, we're not going to get anywhere, and this is going to continue. So I would rather be able to sit down and have a conversation with you to where we can try to bridge this gap and come up with some solutions to these issues, to these problems.
Laquan, why you keep shaking your head, man? You're not agreeing with this? Makes
No,
sense to me.
Ron knows how I feel, and I definitely respect Ron, and how it is. But for me, I can't. It's just way too many lives have been lost,
Right.
and it's just every 5 to 10 years we revisit this conversation, right? How many people are gonna die every 5 to 10 years, and then magically everybody forgets, oh, this is a problem. Really? Motherfucker, it's always been a problem. It's always been a problem. So that's why for me, I don't, even right now, I don't say a lot, man, because I'm telling you, I get angry, because it's like, especially being from the military and everything else, it's like, it's punk shit to me. It really is. Like, there's no training. The training is horrible. The first thing you want to do is pull a gun. Like, really, how is that even having dialogue? What did I do that is so bad that you want, even if I rob somebody, right? If I took some out the store, what did I do that's so bad that you need to pull your gun and potentially take my life? And that's one thing we forget about is, the value of a human life, right?
But that's,
go ahead. Let me hear it.
No, I'm just saying, like, I think that's where the courts play into this, because Ron, I think that's your opportunity to have a conversation. When you play them at their own game and then you use the law to win out your argument, that's a huge, like, they check themselves. They will correct things if they are proven wrong.
Right? They pay it out. So here's the thing, as much dialogue as you can have with someone, if there is a part of the culture, you have to change the culture. You have to, essentially, we have to get to the core of what it means to police the public. And
and I think with what you're saying, and what you're saying, I don't think, a lawsuit changes the culture, because you can print money out of thin air, So if I know that I have an unlimited budget in a sense to where I can do what I want and just hand you a paycheck and write you off, then what's stopping me from doing this the next time when I can pay off the next person and the next person and the next person?
I agree and I disagree with that. I mean, because there isn't an unlimited amount,
and that is definitely true. Yeah, right.
So, but I want to finish though. Kevin, you was in the middle of something. So, like, what was the rest of what you was going to say, or was that it?
Well, I mean, just getting to the point of when we're talking about how do we fix this problem, how do we stop this problem, it kind of like everything that we can do to increase dialogue is good, but it seems like, it's more or less lip service more than an action. Like, no one's taking it to heart. They're, oh yeah, no, we know we need to do better, but then there is no better. It continues. And, yes, you can cost them some money, and that's not, I mean, all that's going to do is make them almost more angry. Right. Because essentially it's like, dude, you can't, if you hit this guy, you might as well kill him because he's going to sue us. Right. And he's going to get paid.
Oh, wow.
Well, I think that is part of that narrative too.
So can we flesh that out a little bit though? Because I kind of agree with you, Ron. I don't want the perception out there to be that this is all cops and all precincts, I mean, I think there is a psychology behind an individual having that much power, but maybe there are those out there that responsibly handle that.
It's not everyone. It's not every police officer. But when you look at who becomes police officers, when you look at the way the system's designed,
that's interesting.
You're setting yourself up for this exact situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and to speak to that, even if when the officer said my officers aren't racist. Okay, well, when they came in and they took the exam, they may not have been racist at that time, but institutions like police departments, militaries, armies, they breed racism.
So let me ask you this though: are there any black cops that are in the Irvine PD?
That's a good question.
I don't think so.
Actually, you know what? I do know of a couple. I do know of of a few. Um, so I'm gonna say yes, yes.
Other minorities or anything that might blend in, so it's just not all white?
Oh no, there are. I've seen a couple Hispanic ones. Remember that one time a long time ago?
Hispanic or Latino?
Latino. Remember that one time you and I was in the car together? I got pulled over by for the tent.
Yeah.
She was Latino.
Okay.
That would be a Latina, by the way.
Latina, but either way, Kevin.
Unless you really investigated, you don't know for sure there, Eric.
Kevin, when I got pulled over, I called it. I called Eric and I was in the car. Well, I was driving, right? And it was cars all around. The cop pulled up next to me, right? And I said, she's going to pull me over. I said, she looked over. She's going to pull me over.
Yeah.
I roll off. She slows down, gets behind me, pulls me over. And I was like...
Which car was you in?
I was in my Honda at the time. And I was like...
Okay.
And
Your
so
window tuning was dark, though.
Yeah, but so was the next three people around me, too.
No, they weren't.
And a tent ticket subjective. They don't have to pull you over for that, because if that's the case, they would shut down a lot of car dealerships because cars come with tent.
Yeah.
It's that probable cause. I had probable cause to pull you over.
Did she write you a ticket that day?
Yeah.
Now that may be something to investigate. You know, car dealerships giving officers probable cause to pull us over.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
But that's what I'm saying is when we're talking about this, as far as progressing solutions, I mean, you got to get to the core of it, right? It's a systemic issue. The system itself is inherently flawed, and we have to isolate those pieces within it to make sure that we're actually making changes that are going to stick and not just avoiding lawsuits here and there and avoiding, hey, we've killed a few less people this year than we did last year. It's like, all right, but like the UK
progress.
The UK killed like 8 in a year, and your department alone killed 35.
You know what? But we have very different. I mean, collectively as a country and our culture, it is distinctly different from England. I mean, there is very little resemblance that I see. We had a whole new dynamic emerge, and our weapons are a little bit different. Our tactics are a little bit different.
Oh, sure. But at the end of the day, we're people. So there's punk ass Britons and there's punk ass Americans. There's people that want to, the biggest difference that you have between the U.S. and most of Europe, most of the world really, but is we have ready access to firearms legally and they don't.
Yeah, so, that's the thing, man. That's
the most militarized society on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why? Why?
Well,
we have a lot of.
Red Dawn, man. Wolverines.
Wait, Red Dawn?
Yeah.
What is that?
What?
What's Red Dawn?
I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
Oh, is this a movie reference? A song? Yeah. Is it a poem?
It's from the 80s. It's a Swayze movie. Red Dawn. It's where the Chinese, the Russians, the Cubans all invade the U.S. And Swayze leads a team of high schoolers in the rebellion. And they call themselves the Wolverines. And, so it's the whole external threat, the us versus them. These people are going to come kill us all. And, that I know a lot of people that are legitimately afraid of, the government coming in to try to take their guns or, North Korea sending bombs our way. And, there's people out there they're like, I'm ready for World War III to start today.
I don't think we're there just yet.
That fear-based society that we live in, where
we're one of the most scared and fear-based countries that I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not even the most safe.
And it's by design, and I know that that's not the point of this topic today, but it is by design to keep society fear-based, because there's a lot of money that is generated off of fear. One of the biggest industries that uses fear to generate profits is the I don't want to say the military, but I would say the military industrial complex. And that's not a term that was recently discussed. We've had presidents who have talked about that and warned us about that. So fear is even the news, they get their ratings based off of talking about potential so-called threats. If North Korea launches a ballistic missile, they speak about it for the next 2 weeks. to generate those ratings. So,
yeah, I mean, there's nothing positive on the news. Like you'll hear a blip about a humanitarian or, oh, these puppies are for adoption or this cat's for adoption. But for the most part, it's like, Trump this, scaring us. What about Russia? What about this and what about that? What about these threats? So the whole time you're always like, it's almost like Courage the Cowardly Dog, if you ever watched that cartoon, but you're always like scared and agitated all the time,
right.
Because they keep feeding it, and at no point can you ever feel comfortable,
Right.
So, and again, then your distraction for comfort is, and we talked about this before, sports, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Celebrity entertainment. That's your comfort. So when they're scaring you over here, they want you to bring your money over here, which is Hollywood or, sports, stuff like that.
And what are you distracted from?
Yeah.
Because I guarantee most people don't know all those executive orders that Mr. Trump is signing and proposing. And
Oh, not even half.
Like the travel ban they just put up again, So that travel ban, I mean, he just issued another travel ban.
Yeah,
it was defeated though. It was defeated.
But still, he's still at it, right? But that's not really
right.
getting a lot of attention.
Does the police and the military both fall under the Department of Defense?
No.
No, the police is the jurisdictionally they're localized.
So city
Or
municipal,
local. So
I
the
think.
federal government only has like what
The
commissions?
FBI, right, is the federal police force.
Right.
Yeah,
And then
Well, yeah,
National Guard, what they
many
call them,
branches. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, there's the DEA and
yeah. But I mean, they're these federal agencies. It's
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
the federal police. There isn't really a thing. Like federales, we don't have federal police. We have specific. FBI handles bank robberies and shit. The Secret Service protects the president. And
so basically then the media plays that role of, from a federal stance, projecting their goals onto a localized community. And as long as the police officer wears the uniform and the badge that matches that description, then they can use fear as a way to have that reflect upon what the citizen sees in the police force.
Exactly. And they have always shaped the narrative.
That's interesting. Maybe we should start blocking. Maybe we should be like China, man. Just start blocking out 2/3 of all internet sites and just leave it like public library.
Well, it goes back.
So I don't
your
think
damn mouth. Keep the internet open.
No, it goes back to that. Remember, we talked about a couple podcasts ago that one bill that was passed in 1924 that Reagan
Wait,
abolished.
Reagan, 1924. Oh, sorry.
No. I'm saying the bill was created in 1924, but under Reagan's administration, and it was pretty much they had
Both sides stuff.
reporting both sides. Like you was required under law to report both sides of it. But he did away with that, so you will only get one side of the news now.
Right.
And if you think about, the police force, if the police went into any of your neighborhoods right now, if they were constantly there, I don't care how grave a person is, they can find you doing something. I don't care what it is. There's something that you did that's wrong, right? And so, like, if police went into white communities the way they went into black communities, I promise you the statistics for white people will go up just like black people, because if you're always there, somebody's going to do something stupid. It's just what it is. It's not like they're going to do something malicious. Yeah, it's just something where you smoking or you litter, I can pick you up for that. You're out there cursing too loud, talking too loud,
spitting on the sidewalk.
Exactly. So it's just, if you go to a college campus, half the college kids on that campus probably go to jail. So if you overrepresent the police in minority neighborhoods, that's where you get your slanted statistics from. Oh, minorities are such a threat. Yeah, motherfuckers, you're always there. And if somebody's always there, and it's the same thing with the military too in these countries, if you're always in somebody's hood, community, whatever, you get tired of that. You're like, I'm tired of seeing your face all the time because your authority in my face, I can't live my life. If I did something wrong, fine. Come get me at that point. But if you're always there looking for something, you're going to get resentful. You're going to do things that's going to get yourself landed in jail because they're right there.
That's why they work out.
Right.
They work out basically because that's a way to weaponize. And if you're working out, you don't want to let that go to waste. So you have to somehow practice it out in the community for a real situation. So because of that, you're more likely to embellish episodes to fulfill a practice that you need to have in engaging the community.
There's that saying, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right.
And we create a police force that is out there looking for nails, right? That whether it's there or it's not, they're going to see it because that's what they're looking for.
And how simple is the example of, think about the fire department and everything else. Do you see them riding around looking for fires, or do they respond to fires? They respond to fires, right? do you see paramedics riding around the city looking for people on the ground bleeding or stuff like that, or do they respond to a call? But see, the police force, they're constantly patrolling. They're roaming around looking for stuff. So like last night we was down at Pacific Beach down in San Diego, right? I seen like 5 people get arrested, right? Just walking drunk, right? Because we was down the strip. But people just had a good time. What the hell do you expect them to do? You think you're gonna have a whole bunch of people walking down the street 2 o'clock in the morning sober? No, there's gonna be people stumbling around, holding trees, trying to hold themselves up. And I've seen about 5 people get arrested. I can see if they was behind the wheel of the car, but they're walking with friends and stuff like that. They're looking for stuff. You just ruined somebody's night. Just like that.
Here in Flagstaff, we have an event called Tequila Sunrise, which is like all the college students, where basically they go out and close down the bars at 2 a.m. and then all the bars open back up at 6 a.m. the next day. So you have all these drunk, mostly white kids stumbling around, breaking stuff, peeing on the street.
Really?
And the cops are there just to stop traffic so that the kids don't get run over. But those same cops will turn around and see a drunk, Navajo or Hopi, and they're going to jail.
I did see a couple of white dudes get arrested last night. I saw all the white guys because PB was predominantly white. So I was like, oh, look at this. I was with my brother and like my friends. So I was like, wow, this is interesting. Like,
hold on, take a picture. You don't see this too often.
Yeah, seriously. I was telling dude, they're harassed. Look at that. Literally, it was like fans. We was like, oh shit, look at that.
I think a large part of it too just comes down to facial recognition. Like, I definitely think race plays a role in that, but I do think that if you can build some sort of that recognition and even a connection from that, that's where I think the change can take place. The problem is like if you have strangers meeting up and then one of those strangers is more empowered to use force, that's where shit just goes the wrong way. Where if it's just like, nah, I've seen you, you're what's her name's kid.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so there's a term that the police like to use. It's command presence.
Right.
They present themselves as being in charge. I am the authority. You are not.
Oh yeah, they do that all the time.
Yeah.
I can't
and that's something
man.
That's something that they are taught to do. That's a thing that they have to master so that I guess people will take them seriously.
So
that goes back to that police state.
True. I want to bring something up, and I want everybody's quick opinion on this. Okay. I'm a white guy from Kentucky. All right. I moved to California. I joined the police force in LA. I haven't really been around a whole bunch of black people in my life. The only thing I've ever seen them is on TV and stuff, and the depiction of how I've seen them on TV. They're violent, they're drug dealers, they're either rappers, yada, yada, yada. All right, cool. I made it through the police academy. Now I'm on the police force, right? And now I'm out there patrolling, and I'm in a predominantly black neighborhood. And my only recollection and my only known, information on them is what I've seen on TV and what I've heard through my family and my racist ass friends who I don't think I'm racist because nobody's ever told me I'm racist. All right, cool. So I roll up with some black people or whatever, and they are talking shit back to me, which is well within their right. You can say whatever the hell you want to say, The first thing, now you're scared because you don't know what to do because your whole life you've been taught they're aggressive, and they're just going to do harm. And the first thing you do, there's no escalation of force. You pull out your firearms. The first thing you do. I see it with the men and women. You see on the videos all the damn time. The first thing they do is pull out their weapon and they shoot. Put your hands down. Put your hand. Pow, 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 pow. You didn't even give him a chance to put his damn hands up. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're so damn scared. What I'm trying to say is you do need to put people from those neighborhoods in those neighborhoods, who knows how to deal with that. So that's the main part of what I'm trying to say is they're putting people who are not used to these neighborhoods in those neighborhoods and they're scared.
How do you find some like numbers on that, like stats? So like based on per police department, how many of them are recruited from outside of their community, outside of their state? And I think that would play a pretty big role because, yeah, if you're training in Kentucky, but there are no jobs out there and you're like, well, I got to look all across the country, sweetheart. We have to make a living. So whatever police department will hire me, I'm going to go work there. It's just like universities and colleges. I mean, you have this upcropping of police that are scattering. They're going everywhere.
And that's what they do here in Flagstaff is you get a lot of people that can't get hired anywhere else that come up to Flagstaff. They work their 3-4 years and then they transfer to where they actually want to go. And, they're not
more pay, bigger pension.
Yeah, exactly. And what you're doing is you're taking people that are not like you're saying, not from the community, and you're putting them into this foreign, it might as well be another country in a lot of cases, and saying, get out there with your command presence and make them respect your authority. And, that you get to certain communities and they're like, oh, fuck yourself. Like, I don't know you. You don't know me. Like, what are you doing thinking that, like,
that goes back to, I want to go home to my family tonight. So with that logic, you're dehumanizing everybody in front of you, whether it's white, black, whatever, but predominantly black, though. You're dehumanizing because, like, I want to get home to my kids tonight. And you hear cops say that. And that, if anything, that right there, man, that makes my blood boil so much, because coming from the military, you're not allowed to think that way. And if you don't go home, guess what? When you signed up, you knew that was one of the risks of the job. Some people don't go to war in the military. Some people never leave their base. That's how it is. But for everybody else who's out there hooking and jabbing, men and female, if you don't come home, guess what? That's what you signed up for. And you're revered for that, because you know what? You gave the ultimate sacrifice for your country, right? You can say whatever you want to say about the military and just how it's used or whatever, but to everybody in the military, you paid the ultimate sacrifice. Nobody's going out there looking to die. Nobody wants to die. But some people sacrifice their lives for the betterment of what they believe, which is safety of this country, and for their other brothers and sisters to be able to go home to their families. But see, you don't see cops, and not everything. So let me preface that: not every cop, but for the most part, what you see is, I want to make sure I go home, and it's these overweight, fat motherfuckers out there who, if you run, they're going to die of a heart attack. So you're like, you know what? Before you get my blood pressure up for me having to actually physically exert myself, I'm going to shoot you, because these diabetes is really getting to me right now. So I'm just going to pull out my gun and I'm going to shoot. And I know I'm talking shit right now, but that's just how you see it.
True.
This is a black man's perspective. That's how you see it. And I don't pull punches when it comes to that stuff, because it's a bunch of cowards out there going home, lying to their little girls, saying daddy's a hero when they're not. A hero is you know what? I pulled somebody over tonight. It was a very aggressive situation. Daddy de-escalated it. We both went home tonight. Right. He lived to go home to his family. I went home to my family. I did my job. That's doing your job, making sure everybody goes home if possible. If not, let me subdue you. Let me go. You go to jail. Let the system take care of you at that point. You shouldn't have to, unless my life is in imminent danger. You shouldn't have the right to take somebody's life unless your life is in danger at that point. If it's not, if somebody's not running after you, pulling a gun or having a knife on you, you should not be taking somebody's life. And that's the thing. We don't have a value for nobody's life anymore, but we see it so much on TV.
Yeah.
And I think that, definitely speaks to the reason why I wanted to, try to foster a dialogue with the police in order to help them see that they weren't dealing with the individual based off of a narrative that they created, but they are actually dealing with a human being, a veteran, a father, a husband, a graduate student, a teacher. I wanted them to see that piece. And for me, I didn't think pursuing a legal action against the police department would allow me to accomplish that mission. Because I could go and sue and get $20 or $30 or $50,000, but then what happens when the next individual goes to?
But it's not about it's not about the money and the suing. The reason why I talk about the courts kind of being a key is because that's where you can, and especially I think if you get media involved, so that way maybe some bloggers and something of it gets kind of spread out there, you kind of really do make your point in the courts. And that's what I mean. Like, politicians pay attention to that. If you win your case and you did it by following the letter of the law, and then you can show that, no, this police force was wrong, that puts political pressure on the politicians. And that's where the politicians go up to the police chief and just say, hey, this is making the community feel uneasy. Can we, let's.
Well, I think in a perfect world that's true, but the letter of the law historically has never protected African American men, women, and children.
Yeah, but if that were the case, we wouldn't have got the 13th Amendment. I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, I would, just cite some recent cases: Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, where the law did not protect the individual who first and foremost had to go through the experience that they went through, and in the aftermath, it was easy to pay those people off in order to buy their silence, in order to buy cooperation in a sense, and participation in the shaping of a narrative. We just saw recently that Michael Brown, in fact, did not rob that liquor store, so-called liquor store.
Oh yeah, didn't he like sell the guy some weed?
He was exchanging weed
Like they
from
had a
what
business thing going.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but the narrative was he robbed the store. He strong-armed the store. He came out of the store. He was shot by a police officer for not complying and attacking a police officer. And in the aftermath of that, his parents were paid $5 or $6 million. Yeah, that's cool. But a month later, we have Eric Gardner, or we have another Tamir Rice, or we have another Sandra Bland. So, I mean, and again, this is not a recent 50-year history. This is a history that is in a fabric of what our nation is, and the nation has paid off people since its inception.
So isn't the greatest, I think, attribute then to the African American community is to have, again, one of those kind of upcroppings of Black lawyers. Get to know the law, get to know the courts, get to know how that works, and then you can slowly push back using that system.
I'm gonna say this.
There's that opportunity.
No, that's not going to work.
That,
yeah, that's not going to work. Listen, the institution of white supremacy respects two things, and this is historic, right? Loss of money and loss of life. That's it.
All right.
So, yeah, you're going to have to go through court, and if like to Eric's point, there is truth to that. You take enough money, out the system, out of the police department,
right.
whatever. The politicians will be like, listen, I can't have that. That's making me look bad, because
I
it's enough
agree.
attention. Yeah.
Right.
And so for the sake, because I know we got to wrap this up soon, but yeah, listen, they've said this, throughout our whole existence, well, you know what? We need more Black judges. We have Black judges. You get compromised, in that institution when you get up that high. They say get Black lawyers.
President.
Yeah, there's lawyers out there. There's some good ones, but you know what? When you're going against the system, it don't matter how great of a Black lawyer you are. You know what I'm saying? You're going up against a system. You're within the system. It's like Keanu Reeves trying to fight the Matrix. You know what I'm saying? It's like, look, you're within the Matrix. So like, I don't care how great you are. There's a million Mr. Smiths that's going to come after you. That's just what it is. And once you defeat one, there's 10 more that's going to come. After a while, it's just like, fuck, all right, cool. We need more Black doctors. We have those. We need more Black scientists. We have those. So it's like, it's more and more and more and more, but it doesn't matter. To Kevin's point earlier, it's a systemic thing, until this thing is rooted out from the inside out. It don't matter how many more Black whatevers that we need. It doesn't matter, because history has shown, one, cops don't care, for the most part, when it comes to like the dialogue. I'm not saying but for the most part, having that dialogue. So that's what I'm saying. And Ron knows I disagree with him on some of the stuff. So like for me, I don't want to have a dialogue with you, because history has shown me you don't care, so I'm just going to take you to court, and I'm going to get this money, and we're just going to keep it moving, because you're going to look at me with a glazed look, and you're going to pretend like you're listening one ear after the other. And that's just what it is. I'm not wasting my breath.
The one thing, though, that I do like about our system, and it's being exercised right now, but it allows for chaos. When things become too set in stone, then things stall out. You start to have this homogenized. In this case, we're talking about a police state, because, if it's white supremacy and it's all that. But our system does have, this space for that chaos, that if you want to challenge it through the courts or the media or whatever, we have that opportunity to us now. And that's why I think it's interesting that the media is playing such a crucial role, because I think a lot of them have to reevaluate their model. And don't be surprised if something comes out that talks about a vetted process. There's going to be some gold standard that's going to say that for certain news to be credible, to remove as much bias and to really report it for what it is. I think that's the next thing that journalism needs to do. And
but I doubt that will happen. You have, in this country, you have most of the media is controlled by a handful of people.
But that's changing. We've had the two guys, the Fox guy, and then Aries, whatever his name is. Things switch. You get new CEOs move in. They have slightly different ideologies, different sensitivities, and it's an opportunity, I think, to make some influence.
there's a chance. But when you look, look at it like a trend line, right? It starts trending a certain direction. It goes up and down, but it's trending a certain direction. And that is corporate and, corporate monopolies of the media, corporate monopolies of everything, really. So that it is consolidated power, money, whatever, in the hands of the few,
Right.
and not the many. I mean,
Is that just because you think there's too much entertainment involved?
No, I think
it's branded now as entertainment, not as, this public service where everybody has access to it because you'll know what's going on.
No.
I think the brand is control, and it's always been control. But beyond that, to speak to that breathing space that you were speaking of, I don't think it's going to come from any major CEO or any major corporation or any major news agency, because the trend, as why am I slipping on your name now? Kevin, as Kevin just said, there's a trend that is going in one direction. I think the change is going to be from exactly what you guys have set up here, right now. This type of media outlet, this type of source where you are not beholden to any stockholders or any corporation or any particular slant. You guys are here saying what you want to say based off of how you want to say it. So I think that if there is any briefing room that is to be found, it is going to be on, the Twitters, on the Facebooks, on the podcasts. So that's just my 2 cents.
I don't think you might be right. I'm curious to see how things are going to unfold, because I have to admit, I think the last of the leaders are starting to show their weaknesses, like Rachel Maddow, who I actually thought was going pretty strong there for a while, where she was getting good evidence, good hard journalism. She was commenting well on it. And then this whole thing about Donald Trump's taxes coming back in 2005, where it was like, there's nothing there. It actually looked like he paid $1 million in taxes.
She's done. That was her career ender. Everybody's already said it. Like,
oh, she's got a rebound for sure.
There's no rebounder from that.
She was going for a headline, and so YouTube right now is very imperfect, right? There's forums, there's videos on how bad YouTube sucks at being YouTube, right? But what it also is, it's the largest single source for content, whether that is news, entertainment, whatever. YouTube is it. There's no one channel or cable network that has the same number of eyeballs as YouTube. So I think, if we want to change the conversation, what we need to do is change where people are looking for it. And the challenge there is, as soon as enough people start looking there, then you're going to have the corporate come in and take it over, so they can, own it.
Yeah. So, oh man, I don't want to wrap this up. Hey, Ron, we got to get you back on here, man, because like I said, every time we talk and we start to get our grooves going, like, a lot of good stuff comes out of that. But we do need to call time here, also because I need to use the restroom. So, so yeah, man, we want to welcome you back. And yeah, Laquan, Kevin, Ron, any of you have final comments to close this out?
Chuck Berry died.
Oh,
he was 90 though. I mean,
that's a good.
I guess that's what happens. People get old. But I saw that one. I was like, damn.
All that alcohol and rock and roll. Look what that did to that guy.
Yeah. 90 years old.
Kept him alive.
Yeah.
Well,
oh, go ahead, Ron.
I was going to say, I just wanted to say, to all of you guys, thanks for having me on again. I think this is a pretty powerful platform. I love the format. I love what you guys are doing. And I know I said that, months ago, the first time that you guys did this and I was able to see it. But just again, I think this is great. So thanks for allowing me to participate and share with you guys. And to share with your audience. So.
Yeah, no, man, definitely. My closing comments would be, I just think that, to anybody watching, have a talk with your friends too. It's really about, whether it's a woman, whether it's a minority, whatever, when you comment on somebody's struggle, right? Like when women's rights and stuff like that. Oh, y'all got it good, or if it's a minority, oh, it ain't that bad. How the hell do you know? When was the last time was you black? When's the last time you start walking around, You know, when's the last time your ancestors was enslaved for over 400 years? You see what I'm saying? Or a woman, you know, like, oh, she had it coming to her. Or you dressing like that. You know,
They're
when's the
not
last
attached
time?
to that story, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, when's the last time you were, you know, let a woman force herself on you when you don't want it. I know a lot of guys be like, oh, I'd love it. But you know what? Let somebody who was maybe facially challenged, you know,
Someone you're not attracted to.
there you go. So, you know, press upon you, you know, and I know we're making a little joke, but seriously though, like, don't speak on somebody else's struggle if you have not experienced it. You know, don't say like, oh, it's not that bad, or try to diminish it. And that's the problem in this country. It's always been this country, is that you downplay people's struggle. If I say something hurts, if I say I'm going through something, that's what I feel. If Eric says, oh man, you stop complaining about it, it's not even that bad. How the hell do you know?
You know, it's a trap that I fell into, and I've learned to do what you're saying, Laquan. So that I think is a valuable lesson, because, you know, when you become exposed to some of the extremes in life, you know, loss of life, you see somebody who's been, you know, tortured or whatever. I used to, and I have changed my ways on this, but I used to look at people that didn't have it as bad and say like, okay, do you have any idea how much worse it can get? And I started to become sensitive to the fact that maybe they haven't experienced it on that level or on that scale, but in their own interpretation, they're exercising their own hell. So even though it's different and maybe the scales are different, to them, it's real. It's a real hell. And that's where, you know, empathy, I think, is, you know, the hell in me recognizes the hell in you.
Right.
So I think it's a good way for us to bond and kind of, I don't know, break down some of these chains.
Right.
All right. Well, Ron, again, man, thank you for coming on, and I really enjoyed talking with you, dude. Same thing with Kevin. We got some rhythm going here today, so I like it.
Definitely.
All right. So for everybody out there viewing, we'll be back soon with another episode. So join us and take care, everyone.
Good night. Have a good one.